In order to dispatch volunteers to an operation within the new EMS, there's 5 main things that need to happen. In this video, we're going to talk about the first one, which is to create something called a resource requirement inside the project. Starting with the Warno tab of the mission planning process, the planners for the operation are going to have to start figuring out the quantity and the type of personnel that they're going to need in order to safely and efficiently execute an operation in order to help fix whatever the situation happens to be. The reason that we start looking at this during the Warno phase is because the approval of the Warno is also the trigger for National MOB to send out an availability email. But before they can do that, there's a few other things they have to do. One of them is somebody has to create some resource requirements so that National MOB understands what they're targeting for that availability email. Is it gray shirts? Is it Sawyers? Is it IMT? Who are we actually trying to target to see who's available? Now, a resource requirement can be created by somebody on the mission planning team. It could be regional MOB, it could be national MOB. That's why on this particular job aid, that task actually spans 3 different rows here. Resource requirements can be thought of as the wish list in order to safely conduct the operation. So it's kind of a wish list or shopping list, however you want to try to think about it. The reason that we put the resource requirements in the system is because then we can use them later on in the next phase to actually accept the volunteers that have put in for availability. In other words, to soft book them, to earmark them for the operation. So if we take a look at some of these screenshots here, you can see it's pretty straightforward to put one in. You just pick a name, put a role in there, put the dates, put in how many people you want. It's going to total up the hours, and then you've got a couple options when it comes to some of these lower sections, which we'll talk about. As you put them in the system, you'll see them in a grid so that you understand which requirements are already there and which ones you may want to add. And ultimately, the purpose of the resource requirement is so that we can publish these on a calendar that the volunteers see whenever they're actually registering for the operation. So a lot more on that to follow as well. In order to put in a resource requirement, we need a couple pieces of information. Number one is we need to know what dates we're aiming for. And number two is we need to understand which role and how many of those people we are looking to recruit for this operation. And so in this case, I'm going to choose my HEO1s, and we're looking for 5 people. So once we go over to the resource requirement tab, you can see I already have a number here, 3 for wave 1, 3 for wave 2. I'm going to go ahead and hit new, and we're going to put in a request for heavies for wave 1. So you can really call that position name whatever you want. It just needs to be descriptive so anybody that's looking at it has a good idea of what you're aiming for. In this case, I want my HEO1. I'm going to book for my first wave, which I have previously said is the 22nd through the 28th. Bookable resource is a field that you can use if you have a good idea of who is coming out. You can put their name in here directly. For now, though, I would use this sparingly. For number of personnel, this is the quantity that we looked at. So in this case, we want 5 heavy equipment operators. And you can see right now it shows as 7 hours, but when I tab out, it's going to do the math and say, all right, we want 5 people times 10 hours a day, that's 50, times this number of days, in this case happens to be 7, and so that's why we get a total of 350 hours. And the hours field is important because the project service automation stuff happening in the background that we're using as part of the Microsoft suite really only deals in hours. It's project management software that's looking to be able to book specific roles like accountants and electricians and that kind of thing for X number of hours throughout a project. And so we're essentially doing the same thing, except for we are booking badass heavy equipment operators instead of accountants. Now the event lookup field is important because if you put in the event, then what that means is that it's going to show this particular requirement to the volunteer that's signing up. So when they get the availability email, it's going to have a hyperlink in it. When they click that link, they're going to go to an event landing page. It happens to be the same event that you'll see in the evop event here in this tab. It's the execution event. And when they see that, part of the registration process for the operation is going to walk them through a calendar, and the calendar is going to show them all the resource requirements that you have an event for. So if that didn't make any sense, that's okay, because I'm about to show you that whole process over the next few videos. So in this case, I do want it to show up, and so I'm going to go ahead and put the event in there. For general responders, you're very likely to want that to show up as well, and you got to have at least one that is basically public like this in order to allow people to sign up. Now, the reasons that you may not want to have these particular requirements show up is, for example, my Sawyer wave. If I publish a Sawyer wave out on the calendar that the volunteers are able to see, then you might have two different issues. One is anybody who's not actually a Sawyer would still see that particular resource requirement and they would still be able to sign up for it. And so then you'd have to tell them that they're not qualified, and that could be awkward. The second thing is people that are qualified, that actually do have Sawyer 1, if they see that requirement on the calendar, they may only sign up for that particular requirement, and they may mistakenly think that that's the only thing that they're going to do once they hit the actual operation. So as needs change on the ground, everybody's a gray shirt, and so even if you're the most qualified op stud that TR has, you might have to be a strike team member for a day, depending on what the needs are. So you as a territory would then have to choose whether or not you want these requirements to show up on the calendar for people to select, or if you simply want them to select from the general responder waves, and then you can simply allocate them for the correct complex role later on downstream. So just because you don't publish this particular wave does not mean that you can't actually put people on that wave. So more to come on that. The flyer driver dropdown is basically, long story short, the system is smart enough to understand whether someone is farther away than 450 miles, or at least whether we have a good idea that they are. And so if the system thinks that you are a flyer, then it will show you the resource requirements that are designated as flyer requirements. If the system thinks that you are a driver, then it's only going to show you the ones that it has reserved for drivers. So in our case, if you choose flyer, it's actually going to create both behind the scenes, but it's only going to display one or the other. If you choose driver, then it's only going to make driver resource requirements that only drivers will see. It will not make anything for flyers. And so you simply just have to choose whether you want driver or both. So for now I'm going to pick driver just to show you what that looks like. So we'll hit save. It does a whole bunch of cool stuff behind the scenes, and now we can see we've got our heavies for wave 1. We have 350 hours worth of requirements that we're going to try to fill. Okay, so as an example, here I am on the operation landing page, and if I look at the flight waves, notice that I'm only seeing the 2 that are flight because it believes I'm a flyer, and also the only 2 that are actually hooked up to this particular event. So all the other resource requirements are not showing up here simply because I told them not to show up here. The only ones that are going to show up are the ones that are hooked to the event, and the reason that the driver one does not show up is because I'm flyer. So I'm going to agree to be on a wave. I'm going to double check my info is correct. I'm going to accept the smart waiver. There'll be another video on all the landing page specifics. So now as a flyer, I've got 2 different waves I can pick from, and the way it works is I simply select the wave that I want, and then I hit the next button. In this case, I'll sign up for both waves, and this is just me saying to the mission planning team or to the mobilization team that I am available for these particular waves. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be selected or accepted. It doesn't mean that if I am selected that I will be a general responder. That still is totally up to the mission planning team and the CNG on the ground. It just means these are the ones I can see, these are the ones that I'm saying I'm available for. So we'll hit next. And then depending on my status behind the scenes, if I'm deployable, etc., I'll get a couple different screens here with different statuses. Okay, so behind the scenes I've now made myself a driver just so you can see the difference. So I'm going to go back and edit my availability. And as a driver, the primary difference is that we're no longer dealing with a week-long wave or a 5 or 7 day long wave. Drivers have the ability to say, oh, I can be there Monday and Tuesday, but I can't be there Wednesday, but I can be there Thursday, but not Friday, and I can do like all next week. So drivers have a lot more granular control, because in theory they're probably not billeting with us, they probably live close enough that they can just kind of handle their own schedule that way. So that's the first thing that you'll notice. The second thing that you'll notice is that the heavies for wave 1 now show up as well. So that's it for now for resource requirements for this video. Resource requirements will definitely come up again in the next few videos as we leave the mission planning process and now start moving more into the mobilization process. So stick with it and we'll see you in the next video.